Good afternoon. Good afternoon, David Logue. Thanks for bearing with us this afternoon. This has been a fantastic amount of content over 2 days. Really, really good tips. Of course, following Erasmus with all his lessons is always a hard act to follow, as you'd expect. But perhaps we'll try and share some of the things we've picked up over the last year as well. So I work for a company called Tact.ai. And we are focused very much on the customer engagement platform area. What does that mean? Well, the topic we've picked today is around this evolving engagement, which is exactly what we've talked about for the last 2 days. So hopefully I'm on topic. And what we really wanted to focus on is how do commercial and medical teams really focus in on how do they lead in this world of noise, and especially over the last 2 years as everything has changed. With me on stage is my very dear friend, Andreas Müller, who is leading and chairing our customer advisory board. He needs very little introduction for those of you who know him. I think most of you do, many of you do. But perhaps a few words of introduction about why you joined us at Tact.
Thanks, David. Thanks for the introduction. Good to be here. And I feel like Erasmus. It's years since I've been on stage. And after all the Zooms and Teams, good to be here with you. Yes, the last 10 years I was at Novartis, before that at Roche, and the last 5 years at Novartis I was the CIO for Pharma and Oncology, and overseeing all the technology investments in commercial, medical, market access, patient solutions, etc. And then end of last year, after having been actually pretty successful during the pandemic, because we did some of those things, what Erasmus said, especially getting the foundations right, I decided to open up a new chapter and see where can I provide value going forward. And since beginning of this year, I've joined the one or the other tech company where I feel that has the potential to go on an S-curve in terms of providing new capabilities, disrupting our industry in a positive sense, of course. And also working with some private equity companies together, because as we heard from Haida earlier today, there's a lot of money flowing in these areas and in supporting basically just one thing: patients can't wait. How do we accelerate the access of innovative medicines getting to patients and more patients in time? And Tact is one where I'm delighted to be chairing the customer advisory board. David.
Thank you, Andreas. Fantastic. And then just very quickly on me, I'm our Chief Strategy Officer here. Spent the last year really trying to help Tact.ai move very much into the life sciences vertical. It's been around for a number of years, actually focused on a number of big manufacturing companies. But now really, I think the home for us is life sciences, which is wonderful. We've had success over the last year, really getting some backing from wonderful industry investors, but also, of course, some of the tech investors, as you'd expect, Salesforce and Microsoft and Amazon, all from obviously the West Coast. Right, what I wanted to perhaps kick off with is we're going to try and answer 4 questions that we are often asked, and in fact have been asked routinely over the last year. So what we thought we'd do is we just kind of pitch them into evolving engagement, opportunities, and how leaders can lead, as our 3 bubbles that we're trying and tackle. So question number one, perhaps Andreas, maybe we'll start with you, is how do we see customer engagement has evolved and what new opportunities have been created?
Yes, so I mean, we've heard now 1.5 days a lot about customer engagement. And we also started a couple of years back shaping up with the CEO and his leadership teams, what's that North Star? Where do we want to be? And have then our roadmaps which continually evolve as we go forward. And on that customer engagement, of course, there are elements on there which we heard today, like omnichannel. We have also key elements like modular content, AI, etc. But the critical thing to really bring that into motion is, how do I create a seamless customer experience, both internally and externally? And how do I manage that? And not only so much what I do, but the second thing which we also what embarked on is how we do that. So moving, especially in the commercial and medical world, over to an agile framework with all parties together, we heard earlier today, and shape up products. So when we go into that customer engagement, we measure continuously the impact we have, and we adjust on a bi-weekly basis how we are basically delivering value to our stakeholders and customers. Over to you.
Wonderful. Second question we often get asked is, okay, we hear about personalization, but really what is needed to deliver personalization, or personalized interactions, in fact, in pharma? And one thing I wanted to really kind of bring to life is, so I've spent the last couple of years running strategy at Viva, and before that about 20 years with Accenture, where I was a consulting partner, focused very much on this sort of question, which is, how do we do this? How do we bring some of the intelligence and some of the data that we've heard about for the last 2 days, how do we bring that to the field? How do we bring that to our customers through our marketing campaigns, through our access campaigns, through whatever it is that we need to try and drive that particular week, that particular month, that particular quarter? And really, what I think what we've landed on is we have fantastic systems of record out there. We have email, we have calendar, we have BI systems, with fantastic data and insights. We have CRM that holds a lot of our customer data. But bringing those together and really having a human-to-human relationship or human-to-human conversation with our customers isn't as easy as we would expect or we would like. So what we thought we'd do, and our founder and CEO is a chap called Chuck, who's based over in the West Coast, with a name like that, it's not a surprise. He worked for Siebel originally, and then he ended up at Salesforce working with Mr. Benioff. And what he decided is nobody likes CRM. The CRM products he was building, nobody likes them. The users don't like them. The customers don't really get the benefit out of them as we would expect. And so he decided to create a separate company, Tact, that would sit really at that intersection of CRM and getting the value out of all of the systems that hold that customer insight and information, and really help build something that the users and the customers can interact with. And that's really where we're trying to get to. And as you can see with our two happy colleagues here, one is really representing our commercial reps, our MSLs, or even our CAMs, or market access teams, or marketing users. And the other one is, of course, our stakeholders and our customers, our HCPs. What we thought we would do is very much focus on, could we use some of the power of AI? Could we use natural language processing? Could we use the data and insights that you've already invested in your BI solutions, in your insights capabilities, in your CRM systems? Could we bring all those and surface them at the point of need? So what's the relevance and the context that's needed to have those personalized interactions? Like, we're humans. We've heard about that for the last 2 days. HCPs are and remain humans. So why are we not speaking to them as peers, as collaborators, as people who really want to work with us in the industry to make sure that we are driving and delivering the value to patients and getting the outcomes that we all hope and expect? So what we thought we'd do is, regardless of platform, we would also, regardless of channel and preference that a physician or a stakeholder might have for how they want to consume the information, where and when, we thought we would not try and replicate what you've already invested in the industry, but perhaps try and leverage some of those tools, assets, data sources, and try and make sure that we're bringing them right to that last mile of value. All right, next question that we get asked. Do we think customers are able to effectively get what they need on demand? We've heard a lot about pull engagement over the last day and a half, so perhaps maybe we'll start there.
Well, David, all for you to judge, but I would say yes in pockets. Yes, maybe in certain countries, depending sometimes in a certain TA, etc., yes. But in a holistic manner, no. And the reason is the demographics. We heard about the personas. We heard about how that segmentation is done. And this is a journey on which we've embarked on, you've embarked on, many of us. And as soon as we get into that more personalization, we understand much better the demographics behind that, we'll get there. And the key thing here is, again, next to the technology, how we do that. And here, again, agile, product-based approach, because we need to evolve in this, in the end, almost real time, to adjust basically to the different customers we engage with. David?
Fantastic. The other thing I think we've heard about quite a bit, and I wanted to see if we could talk about it a little bit more, was this content piece. You know, how do we get the content in the right format, the right medium, the right channel, based on the preference of the person we're trying to deliver to? So what audience are we trying to hit with what message? Now, we've talked about that quite a bit over the last actually decade or two. But I think this last 2 days, I think Dario's done a lovely job of getting the right speakers on the stage and shared with us some of their perspectives on how we do this. But I think we're really trying to capitalize on how do we have that, but have that in a human way. So what we're trying to do is provide maybe just a little reminder or a nudge or suggestion just to gently change perhaps the behavior of that customer-facing colleague so that they are equipped and armed with the right sort of content, the right message or the right insight or the reminder about the person they're about to speak to. And afterwards, very much remind them and nudge them and say, right, you've had a fantastic interaction. Let's quickly capture that. Which sounds basic, but it isn't happening universally. And what we thought we would do is, if we are trying to give a stakeholder, a HCP, really, really what they want, what do they want? Well, they want education. They want information. They want the right insight to be able to help, of course, deliver patient care. That's ultimately very simple, but very, very tricky to do. And if we're having them, as we heard earlier, we have them searching for information we've already lost. We've lost that conversation. So this is something that I think if we can do this in a slightly better way, but in a human way, and think about that customer journey, and in fact, the patient journey, I think we'll have more success. That's very much where we've been focusing on. Right, and the last question we get asked is around leadership. And if we want to be leaders, and if we want to really lead in our therapeutic area, or perhaps with our disease state, or whatever it is that we're working in, or even just from a trust and relationship perspective, if we had one wish we want to solve, what would it be for you, Andreas?
Yeah, I mean, I think where Erasmus put some good things in there, like being curious and being open-minded. I think that's key. But one thing, as we are embarked, and we've embarked many years back already on that change journey, is respect. If you have been lately on a field drive out there, if you have seen how our field people and from your companies, be it in medical, be it key account, be it rep, what life they have and how they have maintained basically those relationships to ensure that the medicines get prescribed, that is a tough role. I once did a workshop with our CEOs and presented in front of them and said, look how many projects we have in a country. And I literally put a flip chart in front of the executive, and they had 35 projects in a country. How can a rep deal with that? How can a marketeer deal with that? And that means we need to really respect basically people within the organization and also the customers we're engaging with. And very important, and that has always been close to my heart, is it's not a vendor we work with, it's a partner. And because we bring a lot of innovation, we bring a lot of standardization, other things with our partners on our journey, and then we win together, or we fail sometimes together, but it's always a partnership. So that respect is a key element, as a key value, basically, and that is one wish. As we're going through a lot of these turbulent changes, etc., we should always think back, are we treating also us and our partners and everyone in that same manner? Because in the end, the patients can't wait, and that is really what we are basically are here for. David?
Very good. And then perhaps, if I could be so presumptuous as to answer this question myself, what I've tried to do, I think, over the last 25 years of my career in life sciences and helping support pharmaceutical companies is very simple, is how do we evolve, continuously evolve? How do we continuously make sure that we are keeping up with what our end customers, which are patients, of course, ultimately, as consumers, but how do we end up with our HCPs and our stakeholders? How do we make sure that we are absolutely delivering ahead of what they want? How do we make sure that we are anticipating what they want? And how do we make sure that we are thinking about them as humans and thinking about what their needs and desires are, not just driving a marketing plan We're not driving a sales target. We're not driving anything that we need to have in terms of a metric or a KPI that we're delivering, which is another reason why I particularly liked what Erasmus was sharing. But really, it's that human connection and making sure that we are one step ahead of that. That is my wish. With that in mind, a couple of things I just wanted to quickly share. We have focused on what we think are some ways perhaps to have a better dialogue, a better discussion, and a continued discussion with customers. One thing we've launched is our customer-friendly email offer, which is how do we make sure, whilst remaining compliant, of course, but how do we make sure we're having a little bit more of a personalized discussion? Not just template emails, but really a discussion with customers using the power of AI and NLP that I talked about earlier, the natural language processing piece. How do we make sure that we are delivering something that is valuable to your HCPs? And with this offer, what we've seen over the last year with the customers that we've been working with is like double open rates, higher deliverability because it's coming from their Exchange email outbox. It's not coming from a blast tool, so it's not getting caught in spam filters. But those double open rates are very, very promising and exciting, which means the delivery of some of the content that you've created and built is really working. So that's our customer-friendly email product. The second thing that we've been working on quite a lot is, of course, Microsoft Teams. We've seen the massive surge in demand across the HCP community and stakeholders, in particular where I'm from, which is the UK, of course, the NHS, which has mandated Teams. But we know Teams is a platform that physicians are comfortable with. We know that they like working in tools that they like. They don't want to necessarily have to deal with technology. We heard that yesterday, I think, about perhaps your commercial reps trying to be technical support to HCPs. We heard about a spacebar issue, I think was another example from a commercial sales rep perspective. So let's try and make it easy. Why are we making this complicated? Let's use tools that are available to our customers and to our teams. And so what we've done is we created our own view of your data, your CRM insights, your external insights, whatever it happens to be, in a Microsoft Teams environment. So when your reps or MSLs are using or having a conversation, it's like a heads-up display. Think of it like a BMW heads-up display that it shows your speed, it shows what fuel you've got, et cetera, et cetera. Can that be in the meeting for your customer-facing colleague to have a really rich conversation? It reminds them of the last time they had that discussion. It reminds them of what content they should be using. It reminds them of what insights are maybe available from a medical perspective, all within that Microsoft Teams frame. That's the sort of thing we're trying to do. It's called edge technology, so it's sitting on the edge. It's not part of our own proprietary system, but it's built within existing technology. So that's what we've been doing, and that's what we've been busy with over the last year. We have a few final parting words. Andreas.
Parting words? Now you caught me out, David.
If you were to leave the audience with one thing, what would it be?
One thing. See, now you caught me out. I like what I always also told my teams always, be customer obsessed. Nothing else matters. That focus is everything what we have. And that was a reason also, this should not be a sales pitch, why we engaged 4 years ago there. That focus on the customer, on that interaction, on that experience, that is the thing that matters and everything else falls behind. David, what about you?
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah, and for me, the final parting thought is, look, we're talking to humans, we are having human relationships, we're having human trusted partnerships, I hope, in our everyday lives. So let's try and help our teams do that, and that's really what our mission is here at Tact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.